Erev Yom Kippur, the eve of Yom Kippur, the Rebbe would give a bracha to the entire community, the entire world, after Mincha. The following is a summary of part of a sicha which the Rebbe said after Mincha on Erev Yom Kippur in the year Tovshin Mem Zayin. Erev Yom Kippur, the eve of Yom Kippur, Kishmoi Kein Hu, as its name suggests, so it is. It's a preparation for Yom Kippur. As we know that the name of something in Hebrew gives its essence, and in fact it vivifies and creates it itself, so too, Al Pi Torah, Erev Yom Kippur, the eve of Yom Kippur, is the day that gives the capability to each individual to prepare for Yom Kippur. So before, in fact, we know and understand the greatness and importance of Erev Yom Kippur, we actually need to focus on Yom Kippur itself, see what Yom Kippur is, and then we can return to Erev Yom Kippur. The concept of Yom Kippur can be summarized as Achas Bashana, a once-a-year event. That Achas is an avodah, a service that stems from the yechida, from the quintessence of a Jew's soul. That's the moment of cleaving of the soul to its source and to its root, in Atzmos Ein Sof, in the very essence of godliness. And that cleaving is within the nature of every single Jew, notwithstanding their religiosity or stance at that particular moment. That teshukah, that desire, stems from the inner core of their soul. That is called the level of yechida, and that is connected to the yechida shalolam, to the one and only creator of the world. In the language of Tanya, it's a chelek elokah mimal mamash. It's literally a veritable portion of God. In the language of the Eitz Chaim of Rabbi Chaim Vital, he says that there's a nitzutz koton ma'oid, and there's a very small spark of godliness which clothes itself in the spark of the created soul, and that's called the level of yechida. And yechida leyachdoch, that essence of the Jew becomes one and enveloped within the essence of godliness on the day of Yom Kippur. And that's why it's not subject to change. It remains always complete. And just like God is not subject to change, neither is that core essential bond of the Jew with God. However, that core should not just remain in potential, but rather it needs to be revealed to the extent that it has an effect literally on the physical world. As we know that the power of the yechida is that it can have an effect on the gashmias, on the physical body. It's rather like the level of Moshe Rabbeinu in every single individual. As the Torah says, V'ata Yisrael, and now Yisrael, Mo Hashem Elokecha shoyel mi'imach. What does Hashem request from you? Ki im liyira es Hashem Elokecha, but to fear God. And the Gemara asks, V'chi yira milsa zutrasehi, is the fear of God a small matter? And the Gemara answers in yes. Legabe Moshe, in reference to Moshe Rabbeinu, it is small. And as the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, that each one of us has a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu within, and that spark of Moshe Rabbeinu can affect our Yira Shamayim, our fear of heaven. How much more so the Yechida in the soul, the very essence of the soul, which is given to each individual, and is given to each individual in a way of mamash, meaning that that ethereal quintessence can literally have an effect on the material and the physical body and the world around. Now, the kavana, the intent, is to take that essence from its potential state to a revealed state, from a state of concealment to a state where it's revealed, and to reveal in a palpable way a Jew's connection with godliness, so much so that it permeates every fiber of their being. And the idea isn't that this small spark should remain somewhere up there, but rather it should really permeate all levels of the soul until, as the soul descends into the body, that spark of essence remains complete, and it reveals within every echelon of a person's soul and physical involvement through the entire chain order of the creation, even until the lowest level, creating a dira lo yisbarach, a dwelling place for the essence of God here in the tachtonim, in the lowest of all levels. And that is the avodah of Yom Kippur, the revelation of that yechida in every single portion of the person and of the world. So much so that we see the person and God literally as one. And that reverberates in every time, in every place, that every single iota of creation shouts out and reveals the one God. That is achieved through the avodah of teshuvah. And in teshuvah itself, there are many levels. In fact, there are levels of teshuvah starting in the days of Elul, the days of Slichas, the Rosh Hashanah, the Aseret Yimei Teshuvah. However, on Yom Kippur, we achieve the highest level of teshuvah, called teshuvah ilah, the highest level of teshuvah. And that level of teshuvah stems from the verse, V'haruach tashuv elhu elokim asher nasana. The spirit, the ruach, returns to God who gave it. That's the cleaving of the soul in its very source and its root. And that's why the avodah is b'simcha rabbah, is with great joy. Because what greater joy can there be than touching and become one again with one's essence? And that's why the second set of luchos, of tablets of stone, were given on Yom Kippur, on that Day of Atonement. Those luchos are kiflayim letushuah. They bring something which is double, in fact, and even more than the first set, because they were received through teshuvah. And through that Torah, Yidden and Hashem become one. Yom Kippur is the day of teshuvah for all. Men, women, and children, each one revealing in all their soul powers and in every portion of their world the yechida, the very essence of godliness. This all is further illuminated when we have a look at the teaching of the Maggid of Mezrich on the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, which says, Da ma lamayla mimach. The simple translation is, know that which is above you. The Maggid interpreted, Da, you should know, ma lamayla, that which happens above, mimach, actually stems from you. In other words, our actions have a tremendous reciprocal effect from what comes down from above. We actually precipitate what comes from above through our actions. That's how the Maggid interpreted it. According to what we've explained, we will now understand this better, because in fact, the yochid, or the yechida of a Jew, has an effect on every single element of creation. If even as one action of a Jew has an effect above, how much more so when a Jew affects a revelation of their very essence, does that have a tremendous effect above, that there is a revelation of that spark of the Creator. And it's further illuminated by understanding the teaching of the Mittler Rebbe, who explains that the concept of Rosh Hashanah is that everything on Rosh Hashanah returns to as it was in its original state, and the avodah of Rosh Hashanah is arousing a new inner delight of Hashem to be the king, and through that is precipitated the king giving everything that we need for the coming year. In other words, through the arousal of the pleasure and the delight of the king, we have an effect that what comes down, what's elicited from above, comes down so much until it extends to the physical world. Stated in slightly different words, Rosh Hashanah is a new drawing forth of that Yechida above. The Tainug, the tremendous delight, which in the Nefesh, Tainug is equated with the level of Yechida, and that is drawn all the way down until the physical world. That's achieved through Tamlichuni Aleichem, by our acceptance of God as our king, and as Adam Harishon, the first man, did in Gan Eden when he said, Boyu nishtachave, orchestrating all creation to bow and prostrate before Hashem. And from Adam Harishon, the power and empowerment is given to each one of us that we too should draw down the Yachid, the one and only, into the physical world. It's further explained in the Drushim of the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, and the Rebbe Marash on the pasuk Es Hashem Ha'emarta Hayom and Es Hashem Ha'emircha Hayom. Ha'emarta Hayom goes on the day of Rosh Hashanah. Through our saying of Malchias, we cause Hashem to become our king and to give what we need for the coming year. As Hashem Ha'emircha, there are three interpretations of the word Ha'emircha. One is an expression of praise, of delight, of being of roimamos, of being supreme. A second interpretation of Ha'emircha is that of dibur, of speech, and the third is of levush, of garment. And if we put the two together, Ha'emarta and Ha'emircha, it means through our arousal of the tainug, of the delight of the king, that Yechida elicits forth a tremendous downpouring, an outpouring of everything that is needed, so much so that it comes down through the levush, through the garments, and into the physical world. And the ultimate revelation of what was achieved on Rosh Hashanah is revealed on Yom Kippur, as the Alter Rebbe explains in Likutei Torah, that Yom Kippur is also called on one level Rosh Hashanah because it's the fulfillment and summation of what was achieved on Rosh Hashanah. And this is further illuminated by the juxtaposition of the Yom Hilula, the passing of the day of the Rebbe Maharash on the 13th of Tishrei, to Yom Kippur. We know that on the day of a person's yortzeit, he's poel Yeshua's bekerev haaretz, he has tremendous effect on this physical world. The inyan of the Rebbe Maharash was lechatchila ariba, that in the first instance, everything should go over lechatchila ariba. And in the context of this discussion, this is the idea that we should take the Yechida and ariba, it should go straight over into the Gashmias of the world. Achas Bashana on Echod, on Yud Gimel, which is Begematria Echod, on the 13th day of Tishrei. So now that we've explained what Yom Kippur is, we can now come back to Erev Yom Kippur. Because Erev Yom Kippur is the day on which power is given for the revelation of the Yechida on Yom Kippur, and for this essential bond to be revealed. And in fact, Erev Yom Kippur is not just a preparation for Yom Kippur, but as the Gemara says, Kol ha'ochel v'shoser batashi, anybody who eats and drinks on the 9th of Tishrei, ki'ilu hisana tishiv asiri, is as if they have fasted on both the 9th and the 10th, as the Pri Eitz Chaim explains that the eating of Erev Yom Kippur, the amount of 2 days, has the same effect as Yom Kippur itself. And to put it in other words, it says that Yom Kippur is what's called an achila u'shesiyah pnimis, an inner level of eating and drinking where we are sustained by the fasting, whereas it's preceded by an achila u'shasiyah chitzonis, an external eating and drinking. And in fact, on one level, the revelation of Yechida, on one level, is greater manifest on the eve of Yom Kippur than it is on Yom Kippur itself, because this Gilui, this revelation of Yechida, extends until literally the physical eating and drinking. And this is certainly the case after the davening of Mincha, which Eliyahu Hanavi was only answered by Mincha. And Eliyahu is the one that is going to announce the coming of Mashiach, the coming of Mashiach, is the ultimate revelation of Yechida in the world. And especially since we consider that each one of the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur correspond to each day of the week of the year, so consequently, we're now given the empowerment that Achas Bashana, that this one time a year experience of Yom Kippur should permeate through every single day of the year, revealing the Yechida in everything we do, together with the Kapara and Slicha of Yom Kippur. And all of this is achieved with Simcha and Tuv Levav, serving Hashem with tremendous Simcha, which is connected with a deep Tainug pleasure of Hashem. And all that has its effect in the Gashmias, so that we're Zoicha Bedin, Begashmias Kipshutei, for a Shana Tova Umesukkah. In the continuation of the Sikha, the Rebbe spoke about Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah falling on a Shabbos, spoke about the concept of Shemitah, it being a Shabbosdik year, which the idea of Shabbos is the idea of Tainug, and the Rebbe concluded the Sikha with tremendous brachas going through the entire Aleph base and mentioning each letter and the bracha which is associated with that letter.